There's a sound people still remember from that week. It wasn't wind, not thunder, not sirens. It was the sound of trees breaking in the dark. Sharp, sudden, violent. You'd hear one snap somewhere in the distance, then another, closer. Then one so loud that it probably even rattled the windows. And every time it happened, you wondered, was that the tree that takes the power out with it? St. Lawrence County in January of 1998. Winter didn't arrive all at once. It seemed to kind of settle in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Your Town Podcast. I'm Matt. That's Meg. And it is cold in the studio. I really wanted to set the tone for this one. Or the fact that our power bill was $524 and we're turning off the heat. Unbelievable. National Grid, become a sponsor of the show because you suck. I can't believe how high the bill is. So we decided
At least we are not alone, sounds like.
Doesn't know, I'd rather be alone, right?
I mean, it makes it seem like it's not like us doing anything differently.
We aren't doing anything differently.
I know,
we're doing the same thing.
We're not the only ones in this situation.
And we're never home. And our bill is still, it's unbelievable. Same things. Same equipment. We didn't add an extra kid. We didn't add an extra dog. We just got quite the bill. Cold in here. My nose is cold. But it's not that cold, right?
It could be colder.
Could be warmer. And it could be colder. So this is an interesting one. I think this is one, I don't know if you said it on camera that you wanted to do last week or if it was as soon as we pressed end.
This one is familiar.
This one's familiar. It was the ice storm of 98.
I feel like there's some people living through it right now.
I feel like, yeah.
Very similar situations.
Just in much warmer places. See, we're supposed to get weather like this. Yes. So, like, it wasn't out of the ordinary, but it was at the same point. I mean, it was a hopefully once-in-a-lifetime storm where down in, like, Mississippi, in those areas, it's Tennessee, just ice.
That, I guess. I also think our trees are more weathered.
As weird as it sounds, but they are.
I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. They're more adapted to the weather here. So I feel like they're stronger. I feel like we didn't lose as many trees as they have in the South. I think our root system is different.
I think the biggest thing for us in 98 was old dwindling infrastructure of the power lines. I think there was just a lot of old power poles that just when one went, then the next, and the next, and the next. So hopefully it's been since 98. They're good, but who knows in another 20, 30 years when we get that ice storm. And we were talking before we pressed record how North Carolina got a crazy snowicane.
Snowicane.
Or whatever it was, a snow hurricane. That is crazy. A Category 2 snowstorm? That's almost as scary as a Sharknado. What's going on, Mother Nature?
The videos I've seen look pretty wild of that.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
It's just sideways snow.
And it's crazy because, like, I was talking to, like Burley and the people from Texas and these other places, and I'm talking about our weather because it's been like wind chills of -30. And, when you're in Texas and you're in these other places, you can't fathom how cold that really is. And when you see something in North Carolina, it's like a dusting here, a normal day. They don't even shut down schools. But it's harder for the people up here that have only lived up here their whole life to realize, like, they don't have plows. They don't have salt. Yeah,
piping and stuff also isn't as insulated as ours is. Like, their houses are just made different.
Yeah. We're built different, which, it's our own fault for staying up here and having 8 months of winter. We don't have crocodiles. We don't have scorpions. And I'd like to say we don't have hurricanes and tornadoes, but we still get some of them.
Get some earthquakes, but,
But anybody that's in the North Country, I think, will definitely remember. It's kind of like one of those just moments, like you remember stories. And I'm a little interested because as we go on throughout this episode, like, I'm curious how much different it was with your tales of 98 ice storm to mine. So we jump into this?
Let's go.
All right, January 5th is when things started. And it didn't feel dangerous. It was gray. It was wet. It was uncomfortable. Rain started to fall across the North Country, which already felt wrong. January rain always does. And that's the North Country weather. One day it could be 35, 40. The next day it could be -30.
And then when it reaches 20 again, you think, wow, it feels really nice outside.
Mm-hmm. but the air near the ground was below freezing, and the rain didn't bounce. That rain, it froze. Every drop added a thin, invisible layer on branches, on power lines, on roads, on steps, on railings. At first, it looked harmless. Pretty even, right? Trees glistened under streetlights. Cars looked dipped in glass. But hour by hour, the weight grew. Branches bent a little bit lower, lines sagged a little bit deeper, and the rain just kept coming.
Really was beautiful, though.
It was pretty. Looked like something out of a movie. Something like Anna or Elsa did. Yeah, it was in, let's see, how old was I in 98? I was 13. Is that good math? Yeah, I was 13. You're probably what, 25?
15, 14, 15.
Yeah, so I was 12, almost 13. But either way,
I think I was 10th grade.
So
Maybe 10th
like,
grade or a junior.
So like it didn't seem out of the ordinary. It was like, oh, we're gonna have probably no school, whatever. But then there was a power outage. The first one kind of happened. It didn't really scare anyone. That happens even just on a snowstorm up here. Gets a little crazy, gets a little windy. Power outage. The boys, they go get it, and they probably charge you an extra $100 or something. That's why our bill was so high. Back then, it was Niagara Mohawk, not National Grid. The Brits still mad about the Tea Party, apparently. Lights flickered. TV shut off. A furnace went a little quiet. Maybe you were sleeping and the box fan that you have in your room went quiet. And then you probably just said, what? Yeah, it must be a line down or something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you just lit some candles and just waited. Because you have to think in 98, it wasn't the internet. It's not like you could get on and see the outage area, and it's not like you could just report it like then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had to call in somewhere if you called in, and the people on the other end just kind of had to go. But then all of a sudden, like, it was a little bit different. You go hours sometimes without power. It's normal. But it didn't come back on for not only minutes, hours. It seemed like it was taking a little bit. And then outside, the ice thickened until branches, unfortunately, could no longer hold themselves up. Even our seasoned, well-rooted trees, they started to come down. And boy, did they not fall gently. Unfortunately, in a lot of areas, too, when they fell, they took out the power lines with them. Rural stretches of St. Lawrence County where power lines ran for miles through forest. There was no redundancy. Sorry, I looked up. It seems like something is walking or crawling in the ceiling. Doesn't it? I think we got a mouse.
It is cold outside.
It is cold outside. Dong it!
Moving on.
One failure in this forest, no redundancy, meant total darkness. And a lot of people at the time, they didn't have generators or Gen X or whatever they are. So that was January 5th when things happened. Let's jump to January 7th. The realization began to sink in. This wasn't going to be a quick outage. You got towns like Possum, Canton, Madrid, Governor, Messina, the bigger ones. Tens of thousands of people were without power, phones, unreliable, or even dead. And again, no cell phones really. These were landlines. But what's even crazier is gas stations, they couldn't even pump fuel. Stores, they ran on generators until they could. Then they simply had to just... At night, the county looked quite different. There was no porch lights, no street lights, no glows in the windows, just darkness as if you were driving through DePoyster in Amish country. There was just candlelight and then an occasional flash or a transformer falling somewhere far away. People, they just stood at windows listening, waiting for the hum to return. Unfortunately, though, it didn't. You remember looking outside? I mean, you're in a pretty remote location, but also a pretty busy road growing up. I mean, what do you remember from like looking out in that? Not exactly in the house yet, but just like the outside.
My house was kind of surrounded by wooded area, though, even though it was on a main highway. So we did have a lot of downed trees, and we were really worried about the big tree in the front yard, well, the side yard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to remember if we had, because we had two huge pine trees, like gigantic pine trees in our front yard, but I can't remember if we had done the remodel yet, because we used to have a front porch.
Yeah. I don't know either.
I don't know, but it was weird to see like no life.
So weird.
And we had barn animals.
Yeah.
So that made it even harder.
I remember being able to go outside, and of course there was a no travel ban. If you had a radio that was battery powered, you were trying to listen and just stuff like that. And I just remember at some point, one of my cousins was just out at our house, and I'm like, "You don't live around here." I don't know if he got dropped off, if he was there before the storm. I just don't remember. But we were just out in the. I mean, as a kid, you didn't really realize. I mean, you were a little bit older, but 12, 13-year old, you don't quite realize how bad it really is. You know, you don't have power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really cold in your house. And you know that, like, you're outside, you're playing. Like, we were sledding, and it was just wild. You could sled on a flat thing from one place to the other.
Yeah.
You know, I can't ice skate, or I would have been ice skating, but it was wild to be outside and play. And then you're like, crap, I can't dry my stuff off. So I mean, if it was cold, if it was wet, it stayed cold and it stayed wet. And I remember trying to, like, we had to, our stove or our oven was gas lit, so we had to like melt the ice, break it up and melt it just to be able to flush toilets.
Yep. We used I'm pretty positive we used our stove for heat a little bit too.
Oh, we did for sure.
Blanketed off the doorways so it was just the kitchen.
Yep. And could you imagine, like, nowadays, all the carbon monoxide? It's lucky that we didn't, but like, I can't imagine just running propane burners off your stove.
Well, I don't think it was that. I think my mom cooked and then opened the oven and let the heat out as it was cooling.
We ran it for heat. I mean, we had no other means.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, even with people with kerosene heaters back in the day, even if you had one, unless you stockpiled, happened to before, you couldn't get anywhere to get kerosene.
Yep.
We didn't have a generator. But anyways, the cold, it moved slowly at first, right? Then it didn't. So then another night, and it was wild because indoor temperatures started to drop drastically. Some houses were in the 40s, and then the season lower. There was a lot of houses, the pipes froze solid right inside the walls. Toilets, they stopped working, and their refrigerators just became ice boxes. And like we were mentioning, a lot of families, they had to gather in one room. If you were lucky, you had a wood stove or a fireplace. Which, did you guys have the wood heat then or no?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a furnace in our basement.
So the wood one, so it was.
But I don't know if it would work because it had to have the blower.
Probably. Man. Scary. That'd be even worse to have all the wood, have the means to burn the wood, but not have the motor.
Mm-hmm. I do remember like having refrigerator items like milk and stuff out on like outside, just kept out there to keep it a bit cold.
Yeah, we did the same thing. It was just like we were all just in the living room, blankets everywhere,
lots of games.
And
my mom always has had, and she still uses them, the kerosene lamps, like the old school ones with the glass dome.
Those. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine if that happened these days? How families, not only like our families would be all right, but like a lot of families, not only not having the means potentially to keep things there, but like having the kids try to be entertained for days, weeks, months, whatever it is, without their technology. That would be wild. No YouTubes. I mean, let's be honest.
I think we had a little bit of an advantage though, because we were like avid campers. So we had a lot of like things to do, you know, and we had supplies.
We were not.
Like the little Coleman cook stoves, those kind of things.
Yeah. We were not campers, but we just slowly rationed off food we had and melted and boiled water. And just like, I mean, granted, we live in the country, so like my parents knew things, but like I said, we weren't overly prepared. Nowadays, they, the weather broadcasts this and that, and like even your sister, they couldn't find a loaf of bread in the store because people go crazy.
Youngest brother would have been like 5 or 6.
At least not in diapers.
And then we had a 2 and a 4-year-old that were living with us at the time.
So you probably had some diapers. Man. And then, I mean, you had places too that I think had like wood stoves and stuff that they hadn't used for a long time. Chimneys that hadn't been cleaned, you know what I mean? So they still tried to use them. And I mean, you just kind of had to do what you had to do, right? But then, like I said, you started getting kerosene heaters that were being ran inside, which not so good to do, but they did it for a long time extension cords, they were ran everywhere. Candles were burned. I actually remember my dad had some kind of converter box that he could plug into the cigarette lighter of a vehicle. So he would go and start the vehicle and it would power it up, and he would run extension cords so it could power a TV with bunny ears and just stuff just to do, or if it
Yeah.
needed a fan, or I actually think we were running like an electric heater through an extension cord through a vehicle at the time, through a car, like just pretty wild stuff, you know? But I mean, there was a lot of people that had to sleep in hats, gloves, winter jackets, you know?
I remember the blankets in the door frames
Yes, that was
to
very,
block off
yeah.
small rooms.
Yeah, I think we were using comforters and anything we could just to keep it in there. And man, then you had parents that probably couldn't sleep. They'd just stay awake just to listen for unfamiliar sounds, you know, maybe a crack, a pop, a creak. Fortunately, hoping that nothing happened. And outside, the old trees just kept on falling. Shelters, I think they started to open up a little bit. I think where I was from, I think I vaguely remember like a school gym, some churches, community centers, fire halls, and it was just cots lining basketball courts. They had generators and some backup power, probably able to get some gas to run them for a little bit. But I think too, just so many people were stubborn and they just refused to go. It wasn't like any of these places were packed, but some people just didn't have a choice.
I think we were lucky. The town that I'm from had a natural spring, and it comes out of a spout into like a reserve pond, and they allow the people that own the property allow people
go and get water.
To go, they can walk over and fill buckets or whatever. So that was, I think, helpful for a lot of people. Once we could
get there,
move a little bit, even though we didn't have power, we were able to like get out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't safe even for like road crews and, you know, snow plows and stuff like that to be out. So I mean, the roads weren't well kept.
Yeah,
but like I said, a lot of people, I don't think they went to these places. Just not that they were reckless; they just felt like they were responsible. You know, farmers, they had to stay where they were at. I mean, they had to keep working, keep milking. I have to imagine milk trucks were still slowly making their way to places when. There were some people in the area that had generators. So they had them laying around or just happened to. And some of the places still sold generators, but they didn't hold them there pretty quickly. And I probably would have to imagine that they jacked the prices of those pretty good.
Can you imagine these major cow farms that have like the electric pumps for milking?
And going back to hand pump.
That's a lot of cows. So
I mean, the cows around here, some of these farms, hundreds and thousands of cows having to go back old school. Those Amish were working around the clock, man. And some people, like I said, they just refused to leave the home. They said, you know, hey, we're going to be here. Might as well. It almost felt like giving up control.
Don't open the door. You let the heat out.
The old saying.
Yeah.
It was wild. And a lot of people, they stayed. A lot of people just endured. Granted, I was a kid at the time, but I thankfully don't remember like of a lot of people passing because of it. You know what I mean? Even the elderly, and it got a little scary with, you know, people with oxygen. Like my grandfather was on oxygen. So I think I remember the company, Lincare or whatever else, bringing some more portable tanks and stuff like that because can use his machine. But stuff like that is stuff you don't really think about.
Right.
And as days passed, the emergency calls just kept. I mean, fire departments were busy as hell, from chimney fires to carbon monoxide detectors going off. Again, medical
roofs collapsing.
Yeah, collapsed roofs and structures, medical emergencies. But unfortunately, a lot of times they'd get to a road and was blocked. Fallen tree, live wires broken everywhere, and those utility crews, they couldn't even get to a lot of the areas until the debris was even cleared. You know, I mean, there's a lot of tree people where you are from. They super busy, and they're the ones that usually have to leave to go on storm. Then they had to take care of their own, you know. I think it's one of those not thankless jobs, but a little bit like you just assume that people are going to go cut the trees and get the power going. You don't understand that they're out in the elements. They're out risking it, and they're away from their own family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine all the dads. Let's be honest. I'm not trying to be like sexist, but most lion men are males. And they're just, you know, the wife's girlfriends, fiancés are all at home taking care of kids, freezing. Just scary to think about. But Eventually, the scale forced outside help. They actually deployed the National Guard, the New York National Guard. Convoys rolled into towns that rarely saw a convoy. And utility workers think they were from all over the country. And even, I do believe they brought in some Canadians. And they had to work in pretty brutal conditions, climbing poles coated in ice. I mean, there wasn't as many bucket trucks, cut through wreckage. A lot of them had to sleep in trucks, armories, and even with like a full force, the progress was pretty slow because it wasn't really a repair job. It was pretty much like reconstruction, it's just, but then the days just dragged on, and then there was new threats. And the biggest one was the carbon monoxide poisoning from heaters and generators. I mean, people were putting outdoor generators in their house. Like we already said, the kerosene, just stuff you tried to do to survive. And it's not like you can run them in there and keep your window open. It kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
But the house fires, just from overloading circuits, from having open flames, people were just burning fires in their house to stay in there, and falls from icy cleanups, collapsed roofs. I mean, there was some deaths, I'd have to imagine. Unfortunately, I just didn't hear of a ton. It probably would have been a lot more. And thankfully, it wasn't. And I know that doing the research, they did find a person unresponsive in a cold home. There was a heart attack that was brought on by exhaustion and just pure stress. And then there was a couple of accidents during cleanup, a couple of days later, but it didn't overly feel dramatic. They were not breaking news because there was so many other things, which is unfortunate as well. And when the temperatures finally rose a little bit, the ice didn't melt so gently, did it? Just kind of like released. Branches, they still crashed down. Sheets of ice would start to just slide off the roofs, and you'd just be sitting there, bang, and the whole thing would shake. And you had the roads that were just flooded.
Rivers flooded.
Rivers were high as could be. And it was kind of like, once all that happened, I really feel like that's when people started to actually see how bad the damage was. I mean, you were just looking, entire tree lines were gone. Fields looked like they were scraped bare. And
I remember there being a couple bridges that were completely underwater.
Yeah.
With the raging river.
Raging. Mother Nature just pissed everybody off. And like we talked about, I mean, just the amount of power poles that were just broken and twisted. I couldn't imagine the cost of having to not only paying the people, but having just the physical equipment from the line to the poles to, I mean, there was places that went weeks, like almost probably a month, or maybe, I think it was like 28 days we went or something crazy. Wasn't it a while?
It was quite a while.
I don't know why 28, maybe because there was a movie called 28 Days.
I don't think it's 28 days.
I don't think so. I'd have to look in. I don't think my parents would remember. But I know there was definitely weeks.
My dad's the one to ask. He doesn't forget things.
That is true. Without electricity, like I said, it was at least 2 to 3 weeks for a lot of them. But the storm, it did unfortunately cause hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. You know what I mean? In 1998. So, I mean, that's what? 40, almost what are we approaching here? 2028? What's the math on that? It's a long time. Long time. I'm not going to do math. I don't have to. But St. Lawrence County, it kind of changed something a little bit deeper, because after the ice storm in 98, generators started to become a little more common. So think about that. You probably know a lot of people in their lives that have a generator sitting around just in case, right? And a lot of people have the Generacs or whatever. So when the power goes out, the generator automatically kicks in. Wood stoves, they started to kind of come back into fashion. A lot of people started to have emergency kits because they stopped being hypothetical. And now, honestly, I think people up here plan for winter a little bit differently. There's a lot of, like, we have a chest freezer just in case, and we have a pantry, and I think we just keep some extra stuff laying around, right? Just in case, to prep for winter. And the storm became a marker in time. People sold shirts. It was just a thing up here. It's crazy to think that it's that long ago. There was
I'm an over-preparer.
You are?
I am.
Now, because of it, you think you changed a little bit different, or just in general?
I think it's just the way I was brought up.
Yeah.
Especially after that.
It's been 28 years. That was the math. Be 30 in 2 years.
I found that it says at least 6 fatalities in
Dang.
New York, northern New York. Nearly 40 reported with the region.
All the way into Vermont, probably.
Yep, New England and Canada.
Real. But ask anyone who lived through it. None of us need reminders, right? You remember the cold, the dark, and the sounds of those trees breaking at night and just the pure silence. It's wild. Must be honest, the ice storm of 98, it didn't make history because it was loud. It made history because it was relentless. It stripped modern life down to its basics: heat, light, food, shelter, and asked who could endure without them. In St. Lawrence County, the answer came quietly. Neighbors, they check on neighbors. People, they shared generators, firewood, and food. And when the lights came on, nothing looked the same. Because once you've lived through a week, when the world goes dark, you never forget how fragile it all really is. I don't want to live through that ever again. But makes for one hell of a story, right? And I feel like we all have that. Don't want to live through it again, but it's a heck of a story.
We've had a few.
What are we going to do? COVID-19 next?
Maybe we have the microburst.
Microburst, that was wild. But that was anything else on the ice storm?
No.
I feel like I'm living through one in the studio right now. My nose is cold. My fingers are cold. That's all we got. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you know somebody that lived through the ice storm on 98, send it to them. Comment your favorite memory about it. And that's wild.
How thick was the ice? Do we know?
I don't know.
Do we know what the ice accumulation was for that storm?
Let's ask our friends. How thick was the ice in the 1998 ice storm in St. Lawrence County? Let's see what this says. Ice accumulation in the St. Lawrence County during the January 1998 ice storm reached extreme historic levels of up to 4 inches or more in some areas.
That's what I thought. I thought it was like 3 or 4 inches.
Freezing rain persisted for up to 80 consecutive hours. That's a lot.
That was my last question.
Some of the other ones had 5 inches. That is crazy. 4 to 5. Even if it was 2 to 4 inches. That's a lot of ice. A lot of ice. Woo! All right. I don't want to think about it anymore. I want to go see where that mouse is. We've had a heck of an episode. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy day, your week, your month, your year. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If not, well, you just made it through all of this, so we're doing something right. But we'll do it again next week. That's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.